get these tasks done and everything like that. How do you suggest that you could ensure that their view is respected when the rest of the team knows, they have it in front of their title, junior, and like you're saying, it's something where people feel honestly they can call out, bang, this is a bad design, and juniors cop it a lot. How do they build respect amongst the team?
It's very, very hard. I don't think there's any surefire way to do it. I think the first thing is you've got to support them. And that doesn't mean holding their hands and directing them too much, because they need to be able to make mistakes. If you're not making mistakes as a designer, you're doing something wrong, because you are just following predictable, well-trodden paths. So you need to have the ability to make mistakes and have that not lose you too much face. That becomes much easier once you've got more runs on the board. So early on, I think for the designer, it's a question of you tend to advise them to listen more than they talk, and to soak up everyone around them, what they do, and kind of try and get your head around. Even if you don't fully grasp every aspect of everything everyone else does, try and at least be able to have those conversations with them about that, and you give them the ability to make some decisions and sometimes get them wrong, and have them learn from that. Because I think if you end up coddling junior designers too much, then you do end up in a position where maybe it doesn't scale up any further. Those people aren't able to then step up and lead things once they've actually got that experience under the belt.
You do have to create an environment where you allow for quote unquote failure. I mean, you have to encourage them to try. At the same time, you have to kind of steer them away from you got to steer them to the right fights. Because as a junior designer, and because design is kind of the black art discipline, like with code you look at the math, with animators you look at their reel, with artists you look at their portfolio. With when you're hiring a junior designer, you're just going, you look pretty switched on, you sound like you have to take a risk, a bigger risk. So it does create an environment where you're trying to steer them to fight the right fights, to realize. I start with give them a little vinegar and then give them honey afterwards. The first thing you have to do is help them realize that most of their ideas up front have not been tempered by a development cycle. They haven't done that yet. They haven't been in the trenches. So every idea sounds plausible. Everything sounds easy. But at the same time, create an environment. I always say fail early and often. Do it, try it. And we try and create an environment where they can actually run off in these little sprint teams, and go, I got this great idea, Lou, and then the guy will jump this, and all right, go, don't tell me about it, and go, show me, and if it's fun, we'll keep it, and if it's not, we'll let it go. We've had features where we thought on paper, they sound great, like, this is going to be a USP right here, this is going to be, and then we get that peripheral feature that we just thought we'd throw in. When we get it in the game, all of a sudden the big USP was a dud, and you have to cut it, and all of a sudden that peripheral feature turned out to be something that you can expand on, and we build a whole game around it.
This isn't just junior designers either. I mean, I get this shit wrong all the time.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. Yeah.
I'm curious, actually. I was going to say, sorry, another technique that I found really useful on our team is playing devil's advocate with each other. So a lot of the, as we're kind of developing ideas and features, we'll kind of take it to somebody else sitting around us, and they'll start kind of ripping into it by asking the questions that we've kind of glossed over in an effort to focus on the cool stuff and not kind of realize the consequences of all the pitfalls that can happen once it goes into the implementation phase.
We call them the Dream Crusher sessions. We're like, every 2 weeks everybody comes in with some ideas, and then immediately afterwards everybody gets an opportunity to just crush that person's dreams, And it's you're just playing the devil's advocate. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? But I'm with Dave. It's like you make mistakes all the time because you don't know anything till you get in the game. And best laid plans on paper can be useless.
You start trying to make new mistakes.
Yeah, try not to repeat them over and over again.
It's a bit wearying, but yeah, if you're making new ones each project, then you're doing it right, I think.
Yeah.
Well, things do go wrong, and let's down that point, because things do go wrong, and this is where I think probably a designer really comes to the fore. Good design comes to the fore, because you have to balance the integrity of your vision versus the time and budget pressures you're getting from a publisher. And Lord knows in the current times we're going into, that's only going to get worse. So, and Jared, I'm going to come back to you in a sec, but how do you balance that? How do you cull without offence? Let's have to go first, because just because of all the things the interwebs have been saying about Warhammer of late, I just want to hear your take on this.
So what exactly?
Well, I'm curious as to how does the designer step up when
a publisher, as an example, puts pressure on and says, it's got to be delivered in X time, the scope has to change. What do you cull? And who are you going to offend by doing it? And how much, if it doesn't meet with your vision of what this game was going to be, how do you deal with that?
Oh, man, that's one of the hardest things to deal with, especially in the whole industry is going through that, right sizing phase. And again, I don't know if there's any one way, like universal way of dealing with it. And I really believe it has a lot to do with the actual project that you're on, what the investment that's already been made in the project, how long it's been in development, what in the publisher's portfolio, where it falls in, how important is it to the bottom line. There's a lot of factors that bleed into that. But to be honest, it's a very difficult thing to negotiate. But I just kind of keep going back to that. The idea that you started the game for a reason, right? And people believed in it, or else you wouldn't have started. The kind of commitment that a publisher has to make, $20 to $30 million, for a AAA title.
Binding friends.
Right. Well, they obviously believed in something, right, up front. And you obviously, the thing you want to do, and I kind of tell myself this, while you're trying to check yourself all the time to make sure you're not kind of too headstrong about an idea, always keep in the back of your mind that, somebody believed in this, or they wouldn't have invested what they've already invested in. And regardless of all this crazy stuff that happens in the industry and in the stock market and all that stuff, and it will affect your project. They will come back to you and say, we need to cut your team in half or whatever. Well, then you got to start asking the hard questions of, can you retain the original vision that was the game that was worth making, and bring the scope down at the same time. And that's when you roll up your sleeves as not just a design group, but as a team, and really start asking yourself the hard questions. And I find that that's when you do have to listen to the publisher. You really do have to listen to the constraints that they're asking you to work within, and be honest about it. And one of the hardest things we have is I have as a designer is stepping away from my baby. Like being able to be objective when it matters most. And it doesn't. To me, it matters most in those situations when the bottom line has been affected. And you're being asked, listen, I know you had 2 years and a team of 60 people, but now you have a year and a half and a team of 30. Do it. And being able to assess whether that's doable, and kind of having the, can I say balls to, is that what I say? Having the balls to
We'll
kind of,
edit it out later.
yeah, sorry THQ, we're a kids company, we're not supposed to say
I just lost the nickname.
Sorry. Yeah, you gotta have the cojones to be honest and say, hey, maybe sometimes it's not the right thing to do. And I find that when you can be honest back with them when they're asking these very hard questions about downsizing and all that stuff, and they sense that honesty, that you're not just protecting your baby and your vision, you're not being too precious about what you're trying to accomplish. All of a sudden, people want to negotiate. They want to talk about it. And I've been on both sides of that fence. I've been where I was actually the one on an IP, my own IP, where I came back after something like that, and I said, no, we should cut this. We should cut our losses, because we won't make the game that we intended to make. And that's the hardest decision you can make. It's definitely a difficult thing, and the whole industry is going through it right now, and you have to be able to be objective and honest about the product.
Well, on that, I could go into a whole thing on change management. We're rapidly running out of time. So, Jared, actually, I wanted your opinion on exactly that point. If, as was just said, the industry is changing, we're going to start experiencing a lot more pressure going forward. So are we going to see a lot of design conservatism coming up, sort of firing for the sure thing, as opposed to actually designing, being creative, doing what it is we are supposed to do?
I'd say that the industry has kind of been conservative in the past, it's gone through quite a large period of conservatism where